roll.
Senator Storm, Senator Yates, Representative Branscombe,
Present.
Representative Dietz, Representative Huff,
Here.
Representative McPherson,
Here.
Representative Palumbo, Representative Smith, Representative Tackett Lafferty,
Present.
Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Representative Blanton, Representative Bowling, Representative Bray, Representative Petrie, Co-Chair Higdon,
Here.
Chair Upchurch.
Here. We do have a quorum. Okay, we do have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is approval of the October 16th minutes. Do I have a motion? Got a motion? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Next up is winter weather preparedness and cost projections. We have with us today Secretary Gray and State Highway Engineer James Ballinger. You all may proceed and please introduce yourself for the record. And welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Higdon, too, as well, and members of the committee. Thank you all for your public service. Before we get started this morning on snow and ice, and then we've got the County Priority Projects Program, CPPP, we're calling it. I want to just give you all a quick update on a couple of projects and missions that we have underway that we consider really critical. One is the repairs to the I-471 bridge, Campbell County, between Campbell County and Cincinnati. And that's the Daniel Carter Beard Bridge. And you may have seen it over the weekend. It was a fire that started under the approach, the Cincinnati approach to the bridge, and it was about 3:30 a.m. on Friday. The source of the fire is still under investigation. Just a few key points. The fire did damage the steel girders on the southbound span. It was not the main span over the Ohio River that Kentucky maintains, but the Ohio Department of Transportation approach. And as a result of that, Ohio is in the lead on the repair work, unlike the Brent Spence where Kentucky was actually in the lead. So we are supporting Ohio in this effort. We have our staff, in fact, some of the same staff that was involved in the Brent Spence Bridge recovery. The southbound lanes remain closed until ODOT can make repairs. They are, as I said, they're the lead agency. Northbound was briefly closed as a precaution, but reopened Saturday. One left lane still is closed. We're working closely with ODOT, as I said. They had a contractor in place that night, and but it will be weeks or more. That schedule is not yet determined before reopening. We are maintaining the close contact with ODOT and with Federal Highways, and we're actively participating in the ongoing local communications about the bridge closure. The city of Cincinnati is very actively involved in the communications as well. Okay, second, Chairman, did you want to?
May I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
You know, that's a serious issue, and thank God nobody was hurt or injured on that. But it's always in these meetings a place for a little bit of humor. And I saw that on the news, and I imagined the Ghostbuster movie. Who you gonna call? And I thought to myself, well, the master of disaster, give him a call.
Well,
and did you get a call that night?
I got the call at 4 o'clock in the morning.
In the a.m.?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Well, I knew you would get that call because
it
seemed like it was deja vu that same thing had happened.
I was glad I had my phone on. I can tell you that.
Okay. Well, anyway,
yes,
it is a serious issue, but and I didn't mean to make you blush this early in the morning. But that you wear that nickname very well, and you've done a lot of good things, and appreciate your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, second thing I wanted to share with you all is I wanted to brag a little bit on the extraordinary Team Kentucky crew members in the cabinet. These 4,400 public servants, they always amaze me and everyone. As you all know, we've been engaged by North Carolina Department of Transportation to send crews to Asheville, Boone, Swannanoa, and other areas hard hit by the flooding and the remnants of Hurricane Helene a month ago. So in this first slide, I'm sharing that we have today on the ground 10-person teams. Altogether, 280 crew members are or have been helping North Carolina Department of Transportation. James and I went down. James has been down twice to be with the crews. Our chief district engineers, once again, you all know them, work with them, what talented people and committed people these are. Well, they have gone down themselves with their crews to be there. And in fact, I'll tell you one story. You all know Corbett Caudle, District 10, right? I always get 10 and 11. Chris and Corbett. Corbett Caudle, he went down and he said, he's got a wonderful dialect, Eastern Kentucky dialect, not an accent, but a dialect. And he said, well, Secretary, he said, I went down and I knew I wasn't going to be able to manage some of that equipment, but I decided that the thing to do was everybody, what they really needed was their clothes washed. And I took all of their clothes and I got them washed in the crews that he had down there. Well, it just illustrates the level of commitment. Now, 115 to 120 are front line, and they're rotating every 2 weeks. Now, I want to also share with you, when I went down, my counterpart, the Secretary of Transportation for North Carolina, he met us along with James's counterpart, and we did a tour that day, and we met with the crews in the Asheville area. And Joey said that day, he said, we really could not have gotten done what we've gotten done without you all. And what was it? Well, experience. And also, how was it, James, that Joey, when he called you, he said he needed self-sustaining crews. They didn't need to train anyone. And they didn't need to offer other supplies and equipment. So our crews have been self-sustaining. They were experienced with similar terrain and similar disaster response. In fact, at the Southern Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials that was held last week in Philadelphia, North Carolina was telling to others just how much help Kentucky had offered. So they're bringing hope to many, many folks, making a difference there. We've had so many great stories. I won't even go into all of them, but some of the best were, I don't know if we got a picture of our, yeah, there it is. The one there in the center, that was a sign that went up, said, "We heart you, Kentucky. Thank you, Kentucky." And stories of of our crews going in to get dinner at local restaurants, and the entire restaurant standing up and giving them applause. In fact, I think I can share this with you all. Senator, in the sense of good humor, one of the crew members from District 6 who was there, his first name is Andrew. Can't remember his last name. His first name was Andrew, and he said, "Well, Secretary," he said, "we're just doing what we always do. The only difference is these folks are really appreciating it." So we just say, they were, and the sense of camaraderie. This is another thing that, our teams from different districts, crews from different maintenance facilities, different counties, were put together to work sometimes. Now, the crews were working independently, but they were, for example, had maintenance and mechanics that were sharing between and among the crews. And so they're getting getting chances to work together. And if you those of us and you all who have been around operations for a while, and especially frontline operations like this, that means a lot. I've got a bunch of notes on here, and I'm not going to go through all of them because I think I've already shared it. But now I do want to move over from this to our snow and ice. One of the things that we all know too well and is clearing the roads of the ice and the snow in the wintertime. Hundreds of highway technicians in each of our 12 highway districts are once again ready to work 12-hour shifts where needed, backed up by many more mechanics, safety officers, and administrative staff to keep travelers moving safely. It's a commendable mission, one I'm proud to report that our crews are ready for because they take this snow fighting seriously. They begin preparing almost as soon as the last snow and cold leaves Kentucky in the spring, ordering and stockpiling salt and other chemicals through the summer. We now have about 369,000 tons of salt, 1.1 million gallons of calcium chloride for when it's extra cold, over 1.1 million gallons of brine, 1,400 snow plows, plow trucks, 2,300 staff and crew members that are at one time or another assigned to this mission. So they will train, they will prepare plows and plow blades, and they'll get everything ready by October. It's a really extraordinary effort. Sometimes it seems thankless, but the men and women of KYTC do it because they are dedicated public servants and dedicated to our public safety. They exhibit the true spirit of Team Kentucky, and I can't thank them enough. So while I'm here to say that we are ready, let me turn it over to the expert and a great public servant himself, and that is State Highway Engineer James Ballinger, who will go over the finer points of our winter operations with you. James?
Thank you, Secretary Gray, and thank you, Chair Higdon and Chair Upchurch, for the opportunity to talk about our snow and ice preparations for this winter. And as Secretary said, I'm very proud of the team that we have assembled, and always prepared. And I'm one of the few people that probably looks forward to the snow and ice season upcoming, though, because it is a lot of work. It's always a little bit stressful during that time, but it's when our teams they shine and they do their best work during these difficult times, whether it's an emergency, helping North Carolina, or whether it's a difficult snow event that we're facing, though. And these guys just do a tremendous job. They do a great job.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I've got to say, so for those of you all who don't know this fellow's background, he himself was a chief district engineer for many years in District 7, based out of Lexington. So when he talks about this stuff, he really understands it, knows it.
Yeah, I've lived it many times.
Yes,
sir. Though when you were mayor and calling me about something, so yeah. He'd call me about Newtown Pike on a regular basis. So, thank you for that. And I'm James Ballinger, State Highway Engineer, and look forward to this opportunity. First slide we have today talks about the 2024 expenditures, kind of a look back at what we had for last snow and ice season, and it represents that 2023, that late November, December, and into January, February, March snow and ice season. We had about $48 million in related expenditures to that, which represents about 10% of our overall maintenance budget that we have each year. These expenditures include everything from our materials, which are our salts and our calcium chlorides that we have. That the Secretary said when it gets really cold, we have to use additional things other than just the rock salt. It's about 38% of the budget. State labor and equipment represents 31% roughly, and our contract labor and equipment's about 29%. And we'll talk about the number of contract plows versus state resources in a few minutes. Okay. As we talk about the weather outlook looking forward, the forecasting portion, we always spend a good deal of our energy thinking about how to prepare for the upcoming season, and working with the NOAA forecasters. They're forecasting it to be a transition year from La Nina to El Nino year. And when we have this particular weather set up, is we could be expecting above normal precipitation, as well as above normal temperatures are forecast. Now, just the temperatures being up doesn't always represent that it's going to be an easier snow and ice season. The precipitation is what can really give us the trouble, because that can come in the form of snow or even ice. So those can be problematic years, and we're preparing for that. Next slide. Okay, and if we look at the weather outlook going forward in these transition years from the La Nina to the El Nino, in the previous 3 years we've had a La Nina is what we've experienced in those years, and our expenditures have been down just a little bit over the peaks that you see, but during a transition like this, as we generally see an uptick in our expenditures and our costs that we have for snow and ice. And if you compare the last transition year we had, we spent about $65 million, and there was 288,000 tons of salt that was used to fight the snow and the ice during that season. And if you adjust that for inflation to today's prices, that would be about a $70 to $73 million expenditure during El Nino year, the transition year. Okay. I want to talk just a moment about the assets that we have and the people and the equipment that we have. And as I said earlier, though, it's kind of a year-round thing. I grew up raising tobacco on a farm in eastern Kentucky, and it's kind of like that. As soon as you finish one year, you start over again, don't you, Representative McPherson? We know that. Snow and ice season can be the same way. As soon as we wrap up one season, we're thinking about preparations for the next year and getting ready for it. Procuring the materials, getting our guys trained, getting the equipment ready to go. It's a year-round thing that we do. It's not just something that we do in November or December. We have, Secretary said, about 2,300 staff that are responsible for 27,000 roughly centerline miles, 64,000 lane miles, and about 9,000 bridges on the state system that we have in Kentucky. So it's a tall order that we have to address all those needs for snow and ice. 1,400 snow plows that we have roughly, and approximately 1,000 of those are KYTC assets, and 400 would be contract plows, and that's where that cost that I was talking about in the first slide earlier, though, that's where the cost for the contract forces are expended. In support of all these highway heroes and the equipment that we have, though, we have 40 what's called road weather information systems. We call them RWIS systems that are embedded in our pavements, and we've got weather stations across the state. And in those RWIS systems, though, you can tell the pavement temperature, as well as, kind of interesting, though, you can even tell the percent of chemical that's present on the roadway. So if we've made a pass, we've salted, you can still tell if there's still road salt down. Those are the kind of things we use to make sure that our efforts are as efficient as possible. We use onboard technology. We use sensors to help paint that picture of the roadway conditions. We have GPS in the trucks. We have AVLs, which is an automatic vehicle locator system that helps us keep up with where our snowplows are as they go about their work. Okay. One thing is, I said, too, we start preparing early in the year, though. We work with a lot of data and data services, though. We have other partners and agencies that help us prepare for snow and ice events. We have trained weather observers throughout Kentucky. We have the National Weather Service we work closely with. It's the Western Kentucky University operated Mesonet. We work closely with those guys on the forecasting, and the 5 National Weather Service centers that we have that we work closely. Anytime there's an event coming through, there's calls that are made with the Weather Service folks. That's in Paducah, Louisville, Jackson, Charleston, West Virginia, and Wilmington, Ohio. And we even have a dedicated private weather forecaster that we can access when needed. In addition, though, we're also, during a weather or snow and ice event, we're monitoring traffic the entire time. We use data from here, Waze, and other folks. We use our Traffic Operations Center to help monitor in real time the traffic that's going on across the state. Because in Kentucky, if you think about, we have kind of 3 different weather zones we have. We kind of have the east, or the west, the east, and then the eastern zone that we have. And then it's kind of divided from 64 if you watch the weather patterns north, and then 64 south if you watch an event unfold. So we can take a look at the real-time traffic data, look at our resources and what we're doing, how we're attacking a weather event, and make the best decisions possible to respond. I will say also that we have something I'm kind of proud of. We call it the Go Kentucky map that we use, and it puts all that data together. We can put our assets, our traffic, the snowplows, the traffic. We can have the cameras attached to that, so we can take a look at the cameras that are focused primarily on our interstates and parkways. Look at the traffic speed data, and that's kind of all layered together, so we can have a true picture in real time about what's going on as we fight a storm. And Kentucky is considered a real leader in this space. There's other states that are out there that reach out to say how are you all employing all that technology that you're using though, and we use it because we want to be as efficient as possible. Whenever you think about $1 that we expend on a snow and ice event or a storm, though, we don't patch a pothole, we don't pave a road with that, or we don't fix a bridge with that. That's dollars that we don't see again. So it's incumbent upon us to make sure that every single dollar is expended as efficiently as possible when it comes to snow and ice events. We work hard on that. Right now, we stand ready. We feel like that we're ready. We are ready, and we'll be happy to take any questions about our snow and ice response. Thank you.
Senator Higdon.
Thank you for that. And $47 million. That's a sizable amount of money. And do you, over the years, how much do you? I mean, you track how much it increases over the years. 10 years ago, last year, or do you compare year to year what are?
We do, Senator Higdon, and anecdotally, maybe before we've had so much price escalation in the cost of our salt, the cost of our equipment and things like that, we could, on a typical winter, it was in the mid 30 millions per year that we would expend, and that is going up to the mid 40 million. And then sometimes, though, during those transition years, like I talked about, those costs can be as high as $70 to $80 million per year.
Wow.
But a traditional year, yeah, we've seen the same type price increases with snow and ice as we have construction cost or anything else, though, because it's labor, it's equipment. The equipment has just really gone up a significant amount, as well as the cost of the salt itself.
I'm going to make a point, if I can. What is our current gas tax rate? I know it went up a little bit to 30 cents and it's back down some. What is our current?
Do you know, Secretary, what
It's
the current gas tax
28.
rate is, or Mike, do you know what it currently is? It's around 28 cents. Right?
I think it went up
Currently,
to
though,
30 and it
gone
came
up
back
and then it
down
came
to
back
28.
down. Yes, sir. I don't know exact.
You realize in 2000, that's what it was in 2012. And I just,
That was a
think
lot.
about it. Yeah, I mean, you think about it, our gas tax is the same now as it was 12 years ago. And look at what prices and what we're trying to do now where it really shows up is in paving. We're way behind.
Mm-hmm.
We used to pave roads every 10 to 12 years, and we've got roads in the system now. It'd be nice it'd be a good homework assignment sometime, is how many roads we have in our system that haven't been paved for over 20 years. And I think we would all be surprised to find out what that number is. And it's not neglect on Kentucky Department of Transportation or the General Assembly. It's just that, the funding is not there.
Right.
We're expected to do a little more every year with the same amount of money we've had for years.
That's right.
And you would think, well, maybe people are driving more and we're taking in more, but the miles driven is up, but consumption has been. It's as level could be with the new fuel efficiencies of vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So we're stuck in that dilemma of trying to take care of all of our roads with the same amount of money that we had 12 years ago. Inflation has taken a toll on us.
Senator Higdon, if I may too, though, that's one reason I'm so proud of the KYTC team that looks at trying to expend those dollars as efficiently as we can when it comes to snow and ice and other things, but especially definitely with the snow and ice expenditures that we have. Because we're trying to use as much technology as we possibly can to make sure that we got to still take care of those roads. We got to keep them safe. Safety is the number one thing. We've got to keep commerce moving. We've got to do those things, but we got to do it as efficiently as possible. So thank you.
I know Commissioner Lewis. She squeezes those pennies as much as she can. Thank you. I just wanted to make that comment that the money is just we're challenged.
Well, we've had, yes, sir. You're thank you for making that point. And if we have had the benefit of some assistance at the federal level, the federal formula as a result of the IIJA has gone up to right at $1 billion a year, an increase of about 220 million a year. But that doesn't help us in all of the areas, of course. And John Moore, I think it was your committee, made the presentation on paving, and he later shared with me numbers that were, I think, really valuable and relevant. That where the tonnage is down, the volume in terms of dollars spent is going to be up for the year. That's largely a function of that we're achieving today about 60%, 60 cents on the dollar of value as a function of the cost increases in the last few years.
Mr. Chairman, okay if I follow up? Thank you for that. And I guess my frustration is, we have a formula that doesn't really work anymore and hasn't provided us with any increases to keep up with inflation. And we did have a bump. Like I said, we had I think 2 years back to back where the wholesale price of gas did go up and we did get a bump, but the formula worked. As gas prices went back down, the gas tax went back down. But it's one of those things that to have good roads, we're really fortunate with the federal dollars, because people wonder when I tell them our kind of sad story, we don't have money to do the paving we need to. They say, well, how are you doing all this new construction? Well, we're doing that with federal dollars, and we're very thankful for those. That keeps the orange barrels rolling. So.
And another,
I'm off my soapbox. I'm off my.
One more point, Senator Higdon, from Matt. Also the federal funds cannot be used for like our snow and ice activities and maintenance, even on our interstates and things. Though, just to make that point, which reinforces that. Thank you.
Well, I'm not on my soapbox, but I guess I'm up on an orange barrel preaching to the choir.
Very nice.
Representative McPherson.
Yes, thank you, and James, I appreciate. So I was a young man. I started out in District 12. As a right-of-way agent, and found my way from a young man from Bowling, from Monroe County. Got back to Bowling Green pretty quick, and spent the first 7 years of first job as a right-of-way agent, as a staff appraiser for the highway department. And I really appreciate, in the mid early '90s, we had a big ice storm down in this part of the state, and the crew went out and volunteered to take chainsaws and do just exactly what they've continued to do over the years, and I sure appreciate it. So, being in a real estate appraiser, I'm just going to make a little comment here. One morning I got up and we had a foot of snow on the ground about 10 or 12 years ago down there in Bowling Green, and this lady calls me and wanted to know why I wasn't getting their appraisal done. This wasn't a lady at the house, this was a company. And I said, well, did you look on the national news this morning? She said, yeah, I did. And I said, did you see them break I-65 with those 7 or 8 or 9 trucks that look like a dance? And I said, you can still YouTube it and look at it. 1 minute there's a foot of snow on, minute and a half later the interstate's clear. I said, I'm 13 miles away from that right there. She said, oh, I'm sorry. I guess you have the day off. So I sure appreciate what she did and what was able to do. And I was watching the Weather Channel the other day. People don't think that Kentucky has a lot of bad weather. We were ranked number 7 for the worst storm. I think the 07 storm or ice storm that's ranked as the number 7 worst winter storm in the United States, or in the world, I guess overall in the world. So we do have storms here, and we do need you all. And I always appreciated the guys that were getting amped up. They'd really get amped up when we was about to have a storm, because they knew they was going to pull some long hours and do a lot of work. And we always appreciated what they did so that we could go about our business. So thank you all for what you do.
Thank you for the comments. So we got a great team.
Are there any other questions? Representative Blanton was looking at me. I thought he might have one. All right. Well,
All right,
You got-
we can move over to
We can move on
Commissioner
to the next.
Bobby Joe Lewis.
Yes.
All right. I just want to, before we hear from Commissioner Lewis, I just want to take a minute to thank her and her team. One of her colleagues, Christy Ross, is here today, and I just want to thank them for the work that they do for all of us. And we all know that it's vital work to grow Kentucky's transportation infrastructure, and she and her team are always tirelessly working with multiple grant programs, emergency road aid, and other programs to support the networks in all of our 120 counties, recognizing that this is really vital work to continue these initiatives, and that includes the recently enacted County Priority Projects Program, which I sometimes struggle with saying those 3 Ps, so I just shorthand it to the CPPP project. And we'll let Bobby Joe now, she has 3 slides, I believe. 3 or 4? Might be 4, okay. And she's going to tell you all what has been underway, what she and her team have been underway with, and that her team includes all of our district offices as well.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Good morning, everyone. Chairman Upchurch, Chairman Higdon, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to talk about roads. I know that that's a main concern for a lot of people. So let's talk for a minute about House Bill 265, the County Priority Projects Program, and the fiscal year 2025 projects. Okay, so those are the projects that you approved last session that are currently in the works. In HJR 92, there were 80 counties and cities that were included, and it was a total of $19,991,000 in projects. There was $20 million set aside in FY25 and FY26 coming up, plus any carryover. Okay, so as far as the implementation status, all of the MOAs for all of the projects that were included in HJR 92 have been completed. They're all executed. The $17,290,000, which was authorized. And then there were certain projects that were completed through other funding sources or duplicated in HJR 92, which totaled $2.701 million. And that'll be carryover for FY26 pursuant to the terms of House Bill 265. Thank you, James. Okay, so the fiscal year completion project status. The total reimbursement requests we've received so far are $1.499674. That represents 14 projects that are completed. I listed the counties and cities that have requested reimbursement. There are 8 full requests and 1 partial request, and they include Ballard, Bath, Carlisle, Clinton, the city of Burkesville, Hancock County, Washington County, Wayne, and Webster. I want you to understand that this is the information that I have at this point, because that doesn't mean that that's all of the projects that are complete. It means that that's the ones who have sought reimbursement at this time. We won't know that until they send in their TC 2038 and then a completion form, which we get. So that's what we are aware of at this time. And also, I mean, I'm sure you're all aware of this, but just so you know, it's not that people are waiting, just, pushing it off. Well, it comes a certain time of the year when the blacktop plants stop working and that sort of thing. And you might not be able to get your contractor to your neck of the woods, right? So that's how that kind of rolls. I guarantee you that's going to start coming in. If we don't get it in December and January, they'll be rolling in come March for sure. Okay, now for fiscal year 2026 submitted projects. House Bill 265, again, set aside $20 million for FY26 projects, plus any carryover. So FY26 projects were submitted to LRC and the IJC on A&R on November 1st, 2024, as required by House Bill 265. Now, there's a list of the projects as of November 1st. The total number of projects that were processed was 1,672 projects. The total projects that were processed totaled 178.3 million. The total projects pending and eligible projects at that point in time was 139.3 million and some change. Total projects that were not eligible, 38.9 million. And total projects pending evaluation, meaning they're still out in the districts, and we'll talk some more about that in just a second, but that's 5.4 million. And then we separated the 10s, 9s, and 8s, and you can see those. The 10s were 50,031,000, 9s 47,870,000, 8s 31,718,000. And then we had some projects ranked 0. And I'm sure if you all have looked at that, you're like, what's a 0? Okay. Well, the reason we did that.
Joe, let
yes,
me
sir.
interrupt you just for a second. He's got a question, and I think it's kind of pertaining to what you were
Yeah.
covering.
Sure.
Representative
Sorry
Haskell.
to interrupt, like right
Oh,
here
no
in the
problem.
in the middle. But when you say processed, can you just really briefly explain what that is?
Yes.
I think we all know, but I just want to be
Sure.
100% sure on that.
Well, absolutely, no problem. When I say the total number of projects processed, I mean that they have come into our office, from a city or a county or, someone with authority to send it in for the city or county. And we take it from there and we log it into our spreadsheet that we have that Secretary mentioned Christy Ross, who's present here, and she's been the one that's handled all this. So she logs it in, and then we take that and we send it to the Chief District Engineer's office, along with the form for evaluation. And then they take it and send it out to whomever they designate in their particular office to do the evaluation. Once the evaluation's done, they send it back to us. We then log that into the spreadsheet, and if projects are not eligible, we respond and let the counties or cities know that, hey, you sent us 5 projects, these 2 are not eligible, and then from there, that's pretty much the process.
Okay. Chairman, thank you, and sorry to interrupt you midway there. But
No
I
problem.
appreciate
No
it.
problem. That's a very good question, and thank you for that. And while we're talking about that, I want you all to know, I've got to brag for a minute on these Chief District Engineers offices because, as you can see, $178.3 million in projects were coming through our office. And I know for at least, I felt like 48 hours, I sat there just answering emails and sending them, where they needed to go. And then Christy was over there logging as fast. I told her one day she looked like the little cat meme on her keyboard. But anyway, that's why when they got out to the districts, one of our chief district engineers even said, "Now we knew this was coming, and we were trying to stay ahead of it. So every time I'd get one, I'd send it out immediately. But then they got to coming too quick when we got behind." And I understand that because a lot of the applications came in, at the last hour. We had a surge. We had. And we'll talk some more about that in a minute, but October the 15th is the deadline we set so that we could give them a couple of weeks to get everything evaluated. But as it turns out, that really wasn't enough time to get them to you all and completed by November 1st. Okay, so let me finish this screen. The project's ranking 0. What is that? It, as one of our chief district engineers put it, this is it might be a good project, but this is not something that we typically evaluate. So it doesn't conform to the processing that we normally do to rank these from 1 to 10. It might be an economic development project. It might be a culvert. It might be a concrete type job. So those are different. And I talked, with the Secretary's office, with Secretary Gray and Deputy Secretary Hancock, and what we decided to do, this is your all's program. And I didn't feel like that it was my position, and, the Secretary and Deputy Secretary agree with me, that this is a decision that you all should make. House Bill 265 did not particularly set out where you drew the line on the kinds of projects. It said that the monies were to assist counties and cities with their roads and streets, essentially. So that is a question that we'll leave up to you all as to how you want to proceed with those type of projects. Whatever information you would like on them, I'm happy to send it over and let you see it so you all can make a decision. I also know there was some sidewalks in there. That was the other thing. I know. I know. That's why I said I want you all to be able to go through that. Okay, any questions on that screen?
Kat, Representative Blanton, you have a question?
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Before we move on, thank you, Commissioner. Going back to your response to Representative Branscombe,
Yes, sir.
I think I heard a small soundbite in there that says that when they're submitting these, you're notifying them if they're not eligible.
Correct.
So everybody who submits a project that's not eligible has been notified by you all that project is not eligible.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I understood. I thought I heard you say that, but I wanted to clarify to make sure that they knew what that they weren't eligible. All right.
Yes, sir. Now, and we send that by email.
Okay.
So, the mailbox rule, I think, would presume that they got it.
I understand. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So back to the amount now. As of this morning, we're showing pending evaluation 5.4 million. As of this morning, we're down to 3 million. So we've gotten more evaluations in. And in the memorandum that we sent over with the spreadsheet, we were submitting that we could have all of this done by November 15th. I'm hoping that's even going to be sooner. But in any event, we're already down $2.4 million more. So we've got about $3 million out for evaluation at this time. Okay. You all also asked for suggestions for the next biennium. And obviously, with the crunch that I was mentioning to you earlier in time, with that surge at the end, I thought it might be appropriate for us to have some conversation about modifying the application and evaluation schedule. And I wanted to tell you one of my concerns. This year we started it on July 1 because that was the effective date, so to speak, of this program. So we started on July 1. We started getting applications in, and then they picked up a little bit in August. And I was over here at some point. It was a very small amount, like, I don't know, 28 million or something like that. But after that, like mid-September, and then to the 1st of October, and then to the 12th, that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it was just an inordinate amount of applications. So the concern that I have about starting it too soon or starting the application process before July 1 would be that people get confused, okay? Because when you choose the projects that you want to do out of this list that we've sent you, we're going to be processing that paperwork. And while we're processing that paperwork, and up until we process that paperwork, the counties and cities are not going to know what projects they actually have approved and what they don't, so they don't know what to submit for the next year. And they're going to get confused about what's on what list. Okay, so it's probably not a good idea to move that July 1st date back. If we go July 1st forward, we'll probably need to move the evaluation date up at least a couple of weeks to make sure that we can get it to you by November 1st, or move the November 1st date to like December 1st or something along those lines. So I would just, posit those things for your consideration. And, if you want to talk about them, y'all all know my cell phone. I've told you, I think they have it in China now. So, you can call me. And then the other thing that I put on here is the ability to modify projects if needed. If there were any leeway in that area, we might be able to avoid any carryover, because I can tell you, when I was processing the MOAs for what was in HJR 92, I had to ask a couple of counties. I'm like, wait a minute, I just double checked this, because we go through and double check, make sure there's no double funding. I mean, of course, we're human, but I saw one and I was like, wait a minute, this is on a current flex application. So I called them and I was like, look, and they were like, well, I didn't understand what that meant. And I'm like, you need to send an email, and I told him where to send it, and tell them to remove that off your flex list immediately. So that we don't get it crossed up. So that kind of stuff happens all the time. I try, when we go to conferences, we try to educate, but it still happens. They get confused about certain things. So if there were any way, like before, if you've got a county that had, say, 5 projects and they're all approved, they were all 10s or whatever, and you did one and they did half, or they did that road, I could have substituted the next 10 there and did at times, but I can't do that now. So anyway, those are the suggestions that I had. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Bobby Joe, on those recommendations, could you get us those recommendations in writing and some rationale behind
Sure.
behind that? And that's something that we can work with. And then on the, we've got, looks like total projects pending eligible is 139 million. In the past, I knew we were looking at going to have a big number.
Yes, sir.
So in the past, what kind of request dollar amount over year to year have you received?
I don't have the exact figure in front
Has
of
it
me.
been upwards of this amount, or are we far exceeding that?
At this point, I'm going to say yes, this exceeds, but let me put it in context. Starting in 2020, when I came, we had 10.7 million is what we had to use, and I made that quite known. We only have $10.7 million. You need to send us your very worst roads.
Right.
That's what we're doing. We're doing the worst roads that have the most social, impact, that gets people out to their communities, and that impacts the economy in your communities the most. That's what we need. And so a lot of them just didn't send in projects, except for 1 or 2, because I preach that all the time. So the past 2 years, like 2024 and 2023 and 2022, it seemed like to me that around the average of the roads that we had applied for that we could not get to because we ran out of money was in the high 30 millions.
And then did you have something, Mr. Secretary?
I was going to say that. So you're saying, Bobby Joe, that the 178 million is contrasted with roughly 30 million in the previous years? I didn't think that's.
No,
Did
that's
you all
that's
hear-
not what I mean.
Okay, yeah. But if we don't have it, let's get that. Let's
Yes,
get that
yes.
number.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. I mean, right now, the total projects eligible and pending 139.3. I mean, if you add up those, when we're spending $10 million a year and we're just doing the worst roads, you know that the ones that are coming behind them, like the 9s that you have now
Will be
on this
10s
list,
later.
they're going to be the 10s next year. And that's kind of what we were dealing with, is we were taking those projects and doing the worst that we could do, or the most we could do of the worst roads. And if you add that up, because it's constantly building, so if I get applications for the 1 year, the next year, and the next year, what's that add up to? Like high 30s each year for 3 years is just about the 139 million.
Oh, okay.
That's what the point I was trying to make.
And this gives us a pretty good inventory of what we've got out there too.
Yes, I believe so. And the ones that are not eligible, those are, I mean, not all of them, okay? I can tell you what all of them rank, but there's a lot of 7s out there. So those 7s will move up to the 8s, and then 8s move up to the 9s. So that's kind of where we're going.
Secondly, on the projects that we have just completed,
Yes, sir.
did you have any that came in under the estimate? Was there any carryover from that?
The one was maybe a few $100s. It wasn't anything really to speak of, but I did notice a little bit of difference when we ran the report out of
They did
EMARS. It was a couple
Or
$100s.
been cheaper than what we had anticipated? And okay. All right, Representative Smith.
First of all, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I still don't understand a lot of these numbers that the commissioner is speaking of, but I'm trying to bring it back home.
Yes, sir.
My understanding is to get a road recommended, physical court with their judge or the mayor with his council make a recommendation for this project.
Correct.
Pot. You'll send somebody from the district out and they do what they call a drive over. They have somebody that rides the roads. I've heard that expression. Is that person the same in every district on looking at what a 10 is, what a 9 is, and what an 8 is? Or have you found out that there's a difference in opinions in District 2 and District 11? Or am I asking a fair question? Because I may assume my fiscal court may not agree that it's an 8. They may think it's a 10. And so they're on to me saying, how come we can't get this in the project when they've actually drove over and went over the road that was listed as a 10 when they were rated as an 8? Is that a fair question?
That is a very fair question because, and I have to tell you this, when I first became commissioner and I saw this, I'm like, what is an 8 and what is a 9 and what is a 10? And how do I know that? And how do I know that the districts in the east are evaluating their roads the same as the districts in the west and the north and the south? Is there continuity across the state? So we had an engineer go out and I gave him projects that had been evaluated and done that were ranked, these different scores. He went out and looked at them all across the state and made me up a book that I keep behind my desk that has a sample 8, 9, and 10. And the conclusion that he drew from all those samplings that I gave him was that, yes, there was continuity across the state and betwixt and between our 12 transportation districts. Now, as far as how they do that, I'd probably like to call a friend for help from the other end of the table, because if you wanted to explain to them how they do the actual evaluation.
Be happy to, and just also to reinforce what Bobby Joe had talked about the consistency, though, and the continuity across the state, though, is we've also asked Bobby Joe to come in and talk to our staff about these things, Representative, to talk about kind of the difference between an 8 and a 9 and a 10 through our district engineer. She's attended our meetings, and we've also done some training with our staff to help make sure that we're as consistent as possible, and that is definitely a very valid question. It's the same guys, too, that evaluate these roadways that are responsible for our rural secondary program that we have, and they're trained to go out and look for the cracking, the potholes, the rutting that we have, things that can cause issues along the roadway. So they've got some metrics that they can use to help evaluate what those are, so you can tell if it's a 8 or a 9 or a 10. And then, of course, there's always factors that can influence the roadway. Maybe if there's a development that's going on the roadway, one can jump from an 8 to a 10 along the way if it's being evaluated. But there becomes some science and a bit of an art to that as well. But these guys are trained in what to look for with each roadway and how to evaluate them. They've received training to do that.
Okay, just a quick follow-up, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I listened to Chairman Higgins' comments on revenue, and since I've been up here, it's been a concern of mine. And I co-sponsored a bill on increasing the gas tax. I did co-sponsor that because I was shown what the effect it would have immediately on my district. And I think I've asked the cabinet in the past. To me, it's not a partisan issue on who does the tax or who does the revenue, and I know it becomes a political football on taxes. But I think to the chairman's point, if we keep going backwards, there's got to be a day of stopping and reckoning and moving the needle back the other way. Is the cabinet in position to make a recommendation for revenue, for what you would see as a future for Kentucky's transportation? Is that something the cabinet does?
Well,
is that a fair question? I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No, thank you, Representative Smith. Yes, sir. Well, the cabinet's in the not too distant past had made comments and recommendations as it relates to the funding, and we certainly on the record as it relates to that. Now, I mentioned having been at this American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials conference just last week, and this subject is one that is universal across the country. Some states have done I would suggest, a better job at at addressing the flexibility in the model, in the formula, and it might be worthwhile for us to look at and benchmark with some other states and work with you all for that purpose. Chairman, I'll go ahead.
Had you finished your?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was going to go to Representative Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we're talking about the rural roads, the county, city roads, but also the state roads, we've talked here today, and I think we all know that on all 3 of those roads, we are running behind on being able to resurface, and that's because of the lack of funding. We are making some progress with the extra monies we're putting in for the county and city roads. However, still not going to get us where we really need to be. So I'm thinking outside the box. Maybe I'm wrong here. That's fine. I probably am. But I don't know if I don't ask, right? With all the federal infrastructure dollars that's been allocated, is there anything that we or you as a cabinet, and I know you've already thought of this probably, but from my own knowledge, that we could ask for some additional monies to help on county, city, state roads to get us caught back up to where we need to be, because it was mentioned 20 years, some roads haven't been resurfaced. In counties, sometimes it's 30 years, 40 years that they're not getting resurfaced. And it's not that people don't want to, it's just we don't have the funding to do it, right? So would that be something that would qualify for any of the federal infrastructure dollars to help with that?
I think what you're asking is, are those funds fungible? Can they be applied? And those guidelines are very strict, and we're following those guidelines today as carefully and as carefully as we can.
As you should.
I don't, yeah, and let me turn to, if there's a subject matter expert on it in the room, that would be former Secretary and Deputy Secretary Hancock. Mike, what do you think? Come on up. You want, yeah, why don't you let him? Or James says, okay, yeah. You address that one. I know you
Turn
can
on
do
the
it.
mic. All right. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And for the record, I'm Mike Hancock, Deputy Secretary of the Cabinet. Representative Blanton, as we look at our federal program and we look at the fungibility of funds, as the Secretary was referring to, the federal program does not allow funds to be spent for typical resurfacing jobs and that type of activity. There are times when we work to wherever we can to address needs as they relate to resurfacing and other things through the federal projects that are actually going on. But what we typically do is when we talk about fungibility, we will try to do more through our federal program of the typical projects we think about to allow us to have room in state funds to allocate appropriately to other things. So we're constantly looking back and forth at fund sources and trying to balance all that out.
Okay, thank you. I understand completely what you're saying. And again, it's just me sitting here thinking, how do we come up with these funds? You can only do what you got funded to do with. I get that. And I appreciate what you do, but I'm trying to figure out how we can help you all get more funds to address some of these issues. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sir.
All right, Senator Higdon, I believe, got a question.
But the question and comment more than anything. But Mike, you handled that question just like a politician would. You danced right through that. But back to guidelines, we have a lot of conversations back and forth about guidelines and sticking to the rules and what's allowable and what's not, and you all do a good job with that, and I appreciate that, because we have a lot of conversations back and forth on that. Back to Commissioner Lewis, we talk about that timeline, and I don't, July to October 1, 3 months should be ample time for those judges to get they know their roads. It should be ample time for them to get their list in, and you still go get them all the week before anyway, most of them. So I do think we need to give you more time, because like I said, probably in District 4, they spend a lot of time talking to me, and I know that I'm high maintenance, and so I know the work that they're required to do. So we do need to give them ample time to get out there and do these. Is a month long enough for them to get that information, get it back to you, and turn it around so we have it 1st of November. The only reason we really wouldn't like to move that to the 1st of December is because we typically, this committee does not meet in December, so it's good to have that for our November meeting.
As long as, of course, we're going to message that and tell them October 1st. At least gives us a couple more weeks. I think we can do it. We did it. The people out in the field did a fantastic job. I've already told you that. But I'm going to owe a lot of people some pizzas or some donuts or something, because I was calling them. I'm like, I really appreciate you all. So if you all see them, tell them that too, because I know that we were really, laying it on them. And they responded like the people I work with at KYTC that I brag on all the time, with honor, and they were sending them back as quick as they could get them. So I do appreciate you thinking about the flexibility of that, and I think that probably a month would work if we start telling them, you've got to get them in. If I give them a deadline of September 15th or something like that, or the end of the month, that they have to have them. Sure, some of them are going to have them in, and we did have some of them come in July and August. But the tremendous lump, some of them came in the first 2 weeks of October.
Okay, and follow up, Mr. Chairman. I do want to commend Chairman Upchurch and the House group that worked on this program that we're doing, the $20 million. The Senate had a plan, and the House had a plan, and we went with the House plan, and it's worked out very well, and it really compliment the Transportation Cabinet. You all were not exactly thrilled, I know, with the plan when we implemented it, but you all have taken the ball and ran with it. I appreciate that. You've done a great job with it, and so the House plan included working with the Transportation Cabinet, and you all have done a great job. And I like I said, I know it wasn't to your liking, but you've never complained. You picked the ball up and ran with it, and we thank you for that. The only problem, Chairman Upchurch, is just $20 million is just not enough. But
We'll have to talk to Representative Petrie about that. You talk to McDaniel, and I'll talk to Petrie. How's that?
that works. And thank you, Mr. Secretary.
I think it was.
I was going to thank you for making these meetings a priority, because you bring all the decision makers and those who can answer our questions that this committee has, and we appreciate you doing that. And thank you very much. And so that's all I have.
We were, I was just agree with that, and thank you for the collaboration that we have. I got a report from Bobby Joe. She was in Paris, Kentucky, for an opening of the industrial park and access road that the cabinet supported, and Senator McConnell was there, and Bobby Joe said she felt really good because the senator bragged on her work and what the cabinet had done, and he said, he'd learned over his career that one thing for sure is transportation is bipartisan, and I thought that was a good, certainly good wisdom, and a nice tribute as well. And we feel that way, certainly, in working with members of the committees. We feel that way, so thank you. Yeah, you're right, and you're right, Mr. Chairman. At first, we were not exactly smiling. But what's that old aphorism about, if at first you don't succeed, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again with the instructions given.
You're to be commended for making the program work, and it did work. And the request that you have, the $178 million worth of request, is an indication that the program worked. It's done what it's supposed to do. Like I said, and it shows us the amount of need that's out there.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Right. May I add one thing, please?
Sure.
Senator McConnell, not only he wasn't specifically bragging on my work, he was bragging on his work.
We only get
he was talking.
The opportunities are for everyone to work together, and that was what I think his message was.
Right.
And that's, frankly, that's our governor's message to us all the time too. So it's good that we're singing out of the same proverbial hymn book on that it's bipartisan, and we need to work to help our citizens.
And that's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
I just wanted to echo Senator's comments about you all working with this program and knowing it's new, and we knew there was going to be some bumps in the road, but I think we're working out the twist, and we will get it where it needs to be. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I believe there is no further business. Oh, Representing McPherson.
Could you explain to me, you said the uneligible, on the slide back where you had the $38 million, uneligible projects.
Yes, sir.
The difference between those and a zero project.
The non-eligible projects will include projects that are resurfacing projects that ranked below an 8, or the request was for a state highway, or a U.S. highway. And we can't do that with these funds.
So
So
then-
we just sent them a letter back saying these didn't qualify. Primarily, it's because they ranked below an 8.
So why have the 0 then? Why have the?
The 0 categories are projects of a different nature.
And that's what I was asking, the
Right.
explanation of the difference.
Well, we
of
don't
the-
have the criteria within which to rank them. It's not a resurfacing job.
Okay.
So we couldn't
But would
assign
they not
it.
be not eligible again, or they're not eligible
that's
for a
up-
different reason? You're
It's
saying?
up to you all.
Okay.
I mean, in House Bill 265, it says that these monies are allocated to assist with county roads and city streets, essentially. Well, these projects that are in the 0 category, they do assist with county roads and city streets. So we didn't feel like we could automatically take them out. That's going to be up to you all. If you don't want to have those kind of projects sent over, then we need some guidance, in other words, on that.
Thank you.
And
I just get questioned on that, and
then we'll be
Intrigued,
able to
yeah.
move them to the non-eligible category if you don't want to do concrete projects. I think we have one in there that was a project that had some curbs and gutters put in, and it was a grant that the community had gotten to do this project, and then they didn't end up with enough money. So they were wanting more money to finish this project. And that included the resurfacing. So I didn't feel like I could just kick that out without letting you all look at it.
Okay. One more comment.
Sure.
So I know we're talking about budgeting, and we're all about, figuring out the gas tax, and I'm a component of, paying taxes. Usury tax is probably the most fair tax you'll ever have. But we've got record funding right now, and I think in my part of the state, where we have a lot of growth funding at $450 million, we need projects let. That's what we need. We really, really, really need projects let. If y'all can do anything in the next year or so to get these projects let and get them under contract before these prices and before these adjustments or before these costs go up, I'd sure appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll do our very best. We agree that as much as possible, full throttle forward.
Hammer down.
Yes, sir.
He didn't want. Okay. All right. I don't think there are any other questions, and that concludes the agenda. So we do now stand adjourned. And this is all.
Thank you.
This is the last meeting, so we will see you all probably in February.